Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Monday, July 27th, 2020. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. There are still a lot of questions about what the 2020 college football season might look like. Conferences still have to release updated schedules. Even then, there's no guarantee that those games are going to go off exactly as planned. But the impact of everything going on right now could be felt across college football for well beyond this fall and possibly for years to come. Right now, we're still in the middle of an NCAA mandated dead period in recruiting. That means no campus visits, no camps for coaches to evaluate guys in person. Buckeye Scoop recruiting analyst Bill Greene joins me this morning. Bill, let's start with those on-campus visits. Ohio State and a number of other programs have commitments from some guys who have actually never visited the school. And then on the other hand, there are guys who it seems like probably would have committed already if they had actually been able to visit by now. How big of an impact is that having on classes across the country right now?
Yeah, I think it had a huge impact early. And I think most of the guys that kind of got a little concerned with how the coronavirus was going to affect things. I think a lot of guys committed earlier than they wanted to. And I think the numbers bear that out. You know, when you look at the number of commitments on July 1 was the last time I checked, but this July 1 was more than the July 1s the past 2 years. So you could tell a lot of guys kind of jumped in early, secured spots, and then are going to take another look at this, you know, in the fall if the visits open back up again. So I think we're going to see a record decommitments this year. Not so sure how that's really going to affect the Ohio State, the Alabama, the Clemson, but, you know, I think it's going to affect the mid-tier schools like crazy. I think teams with 15 commitments right now, those classes could get demolished as these schools move on from guys that they misevaluated, and kids take visits and go to bigger schools that, you know, they weren't sure would take them. So I think there's going to be a total reboot coming if the visits are allowed in the fall. So what you're seeing right now in terms of class rankings and stuff, it could be totally different in October.
Something else that I think is going to be a big issue for some of those mid-tier schools is the lack of those summer camps. You know, that's where guys normally who might not be takes right now can go and earn a committable offer. You know, there's a ton of examples over the years of guys who've done that. I mean, Darren Lee was one famous example, earned an offer because he was impressive at camp, and Luke Fickell really fought for him. Between the lack of camps this summer, certain states like Virginia shutting down football entirely for the fall, it seems like there's a whole class of seniors who might have been able to earn, you know, say an Ohio State offer, a Power 5 offer, who might end up at a lower level school. How many kids do you see getting caught up in that this year?
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of it. And I know there are kids out there that are being evaluated off October film, November film, you know, and that's not who they are today, because I have been able to get out. I think I've been to like 3 different camps in the past month, and I'm seeing guys that I had pictures in my head of who I thought they were based on film from last September or last October. And now you see the guy that's grown 2 inches, that's gotten a little faster, whose body is filled out. They're not the same kids. And I'm not sure that these college coaches are able to have that same evaluation right now. They're going off of what they saw last year. And that's making it tough for these guys. And that's why I worry that there might be some guys committed right now, and then schools were kind of guessing on what they thought they would end up being based on film from a year ago. And then they may see them in person in September or October and think, wow, we misevaluated this kid. He can't play for us. And then it gets kind of touchy when you have to make some hard decisions. And, you know, you'll see a kid announcing his decommitment from a certain school and, you know, please respect my decision. And it wasn't that he decommitted, it was that they decommitted him. So I think there's turmoil coming. And I think, you know, what you brought up, the lack of camps, really hinders the evaluation process for these schools, and they're doing more guessing than what they should be doing. They also lost the spring evaluation period, where not only could kids not come to campus to work out for them, but the coaches weren't allowed to go on the road and see these kids. We have the spring evaluation period in April and May, where they're able to get out and see little Johnny and see that, wow, he's now 6'4". Wow, he's really, you know, added velocity to his arm strength. boy, is he moving better than he did last year? Or he's not as good as what we thought he was as a sophomore. He's gained weight, bad weight. I don't like what I see. So it works both ways, but they lost the camps and they lost the spring evaluation period. So you're doing a lot of guessing right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned especially the guys who might kind of get voluntold that they're going to be decommitting from a program if they haven't progressed the way teams thought they might. The other side of that coin is the guys who might have grown a lot since last year, and if coaches haven't seen it in person, they might not know. So how does that impact things on the field a year from now? Does the kid who might have in a normal year been able to go to camp, earn an offer from Michigan State, for example, and instead he doesn't get to camp, he doesn't have senior film, so he ends up at Eastern Michigan instead. A year or two from now, when coaches figure out, hey, this kid's way better than we thought, does he put himself in the transfer portal a year from now? If not, does this then hurt that second-tier Big Ten team, that Michigan State team, who might miss out on some of those developmental kids that they seem like they live and die by? How do you see that kind of dynamic potentially playing out?
Well, I think if we're able to have a fall football season, we'll take Ohio, for example, if they're able to get out and see these guys in person, I think that kid has a chance then to get his film on Huddle and to have the coaches come out and see him in person, either in practice or in a game. And in that case, I think he's fine. But what happens in Virginia right now? That kid that's committed to Eastern Michigan, that has now grown 3 inches and is now running 4.5 instead of 4.7. And who's going to see him to know? Maybe his coach can kind of push for him, but Michigan State's not going to take a guy sight unseen off bad junior film, even though the coach is telling him, look, you got to trust me on this. This guy's better. Well, that's not going to work. Okay, so that guy, there's no chance for that guy at that point. Where the kid in Ohio, as long as we have our fall football, that kid still has a chance to reestablish himself. Okay, but where there's no football in a state like Virginia, I don't know what that kid does. And not everyone can move to a different state. It's not that easy. Superstar, yeah, IMG will take Travion Henderson right now, and room and board will be covered. Everything will be fine. But the kid committed to Eastern Michigan is not a kid IMG wants. So, we're going to see how this affects things. But my guess is like 4 years from now, we're going to see the overall #1 draft pick possibly come out of Kent State or, Eastern Washington or something like that, because he was misevaluated on lack of information.
And yeah, this could potentially impact things far beyond the 2021 class too. I mean, you get the 2022s, the 2023s would normally be out camping this summer, earning offers, putting out a strong sophomore, junior season film that may or may not get to do that this year.
Right.
How much does this push those recruiting cycles back in terms of evaluation, offers, and commitments?
I mean, it does push them back, but hopefully we return to normalcy before those guys sign. I mean, I'm hoping a year from now that we're not living under the conditions we're living now, and that we've got a handle on this virus, we've got a vaccine or something that we're able to live with it and better than we are right now. But, so those kids can reestablish themselves. They will have the evaluation period next spring, I'm hoping. The summer camps next spring, I'm hoping. A lot of these guys are going to play their junior years, their sophomore years, and they'll be fine. The guy at Hertz is the guy we talked about in the last question. The 2021 kid that doesn't have a chance to show what he has, in a state that doesn't play football. I mean, that guy, he's lost, and there's nothing can be done unless, he would go to a prep school or something. If you could bet on yourself, turn down the Eastern Michigan scholarship, which is really risky, go to Fork Union, go to a prep school, go to a junior college, and then hope to get re-recruited. But that's a risky proposition.
Ohio State has been way out in front of things. It's felt like this cycle. I mean, #1, obviously, overall in most rankings for 2021, #2 right now for 2022. I mean, they only have 3 commitments, but they're, they are at least at or ahead of where most people are. Based on how they've approached these classes, is it possible that all the chaos and uncertainty end up helping the Buckeyes in a way, just because other schools may be further behind in their evaluations and just have a tough time, tougher than normal time catching up?
I think it did help them. When you look at Travion Henderson, how that whole recruitment went, I mean, he is so pro Ohio State. I'm not sure that anything would have changed, but, I think if Ohio State had their choice, they would rather that, he didn't visit anywhere else and didn't visit them. He's ready to go. He's all in. I think they were thrilled with that. I think it helped him with Tamisi Adelea. I think that guy, he's going to take those visits if his opportunity arises. So had there been visits, I mean, maybe Ohio State would have won him, over LSU, over Florida, over Texas, over whoever else he would have visited. But I think the fact that there were no visits, he was ready to make a commitment, even though it may not be 100% solid. I think it helped them with him too. So their approach, they came out of the block so quickly, even way before, we ever heard of the word coronavirus. They were in great shape. Coronavirus probably reared its ugly head in late February, I'm guessing. Well, they were in way, way tremendous shape before we ever heard the coronavirus. So they're sharp. It shows every year. The same guys are ranked, in the top 5 every year, and they have the best staffs, and they know what they're doing, and they do it year after year after year. It's a Mark Pantoni thing. Wherever he is, they're going to be ahead of the curve. It worked at Florida. He picks up and moves Midwest to Ohio, and, he doesn't miss a beat. There's no adjustment period at all for Mark. So when you have a guy like that, you're going to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, the strange coincidence that Mark Pantoni keeps being at schools that are way ahead of the curve and keep recruiting well every year, no matter what the zip code is that he's recruiting. It's just what a strange coincidence that is. Right. Bill, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You can find Bill's famous Thursday chats as well as his reporting at BuckeyeScoop.com. He also co-hosts the Gives and the Bank podcast. They just dropped a fantastic episode, position by position, look at the Buckeyes 2021 recruiting class. If you care enough about recruiting that you are still listening to this podcast, you will probably find that one worth your time as well. You can find that and all of our great podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe and leave us a rating and review there as well. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.